Welcome to the Exceptionally Irresistible Show, featuring conversations with people who have demonstrated exceptional success in their lives and who have some irresistible qualities worth learning from. Come learn how others have created an exceptionally irresistible life. You too can live an extraordinary life, both personally and professionally. So sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage, and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to the final episode of the Exceptionally Irresistible Show Season 2. This concludes our second season. This is super exciting, super phenomenal. Thank you guys so much for showing up every week and for engaging and for being part of this incredible journey. We are getting excited for Season 3 coming at you very soon, taking a little bit of a different direction, we're just continuing the conversation really. So, we're evolving. That's how things work around. But this is a recap. This is going to wrap it up for our season, and we're very excited about it. And so, what we've learned in the last, year almost of doing this, and just the different people who we brought on as exceptional individuals who had exceptional stories or lessons to share with us. And as you saw with time, it evolved, and we've learned that each one of these lessons had leadership qualities to them. That's the angle we want to take with this show. And what we're going to be doing in season 3 is to really, really take that to the leadership component. And we're going to be focusing on how all these lessons and how all these stories tie in to you as a leader. Now, a leader doesn't mean necessarily that you're running an organization, that you have all these different people under you. But as you saw, these were individuals who spoke about different elements of leadership. We need to do things within ourselves that is leadership quality. Now, leadership is hidden everywhere. It could be something where you do run an organization of 5, 10, 20, 30, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people, whatever. But it could also be when you're just by yourself. And where is leadership when you're by yourself? Well, typically you will come across and you will come in contact with many people in your business. These are, collaborators. These are referral partners. These are people you're going to meet at networking events. These are potential vendors, potential contractors, your clients, all these different people that you're going to come into contact with your business. And that requires leadership. And that requires you as an individual, how you show up and how people will remember you by. And why would people want to do business with you? And there are so many people who do what you do. And there are so many people who promise the world. And I'm sure many people will say, oh, I could also give all this incredible, customer service and treat them well. And everybody says that, but really, 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 there's only one version of you. And really, that's what we're talking about here throughout this entire journey. All the episodes that led up to this particular one where we're up to, and what's going to be starting up, the next season is all about how you as an individual show up. And once again, go back. You're going to hear some incredible people who shared incredible stories. And what we've ended off with the last few episodes were real life stories of individuals who've accomplished unbelievable things. I mean, we heard Danny Smith and Caleb Pullman, who led a rookie team from absolutely, and I mean absolutely nothing. They took them off the streets, these kids, these kids had no experience programming robots, no experience doing any of this sort of stuff. And they took them to world leadership, placing top 100 in the world. Like, I know nothing about coding, and I could just tell you that is pretty remarkable, right? And taking kids from this absolutely nothing and taking them on to such great accomplishments. And then we heard a pro athlete, a former NFL player, Mark Ogden, talking about how he had all of his ups and downs, going from pro athlete to the successful businessman, losing it all, going through a divorce, living in a tiny little apartment, building up himself as in a business sense. Again, it's remarkable. And it's just from how, the stories he told himself in his head, and by not, falling into victimhood. And finally, last week we heard about CJ and her, where she's at with her athletic, competitive uh, nature of her archery. Now, with the story with CJ was that we were we visit a farm every so often. We get our dairy from there, and we were just talking, and what's up? Well, where are you up to these days? And I was just sharing something top of mind for me, and the whole example of archery that I typically talk about in all these other videos. And they said, "Oh, by the way, did you know that CJ is a competitive, competitive? She does archery competitively?" And I was like, "No, I had no idea." And we got into a conversation, and she's agreed to come on to the show. And here she was. She was here last time, and the more you learn about it, the more you see how she's so early on in her career. She's very young, and I think she's still in high school, if I'm not mistaken, or she's graduating or something in that nature. But you're seeing a young individual who's so early on in their career, and they have this incredible um, potential in future. But what the reason why I brought her on to the show, and why I wanted to end off with her, was because we started off with Bob Berg, who is an accomplished individual. He's going to lead. He is already a legend. He is already somebody, that most of us have heard of, and who's accomplished great deals, a mentor, and super, super special in my world, especially. Um, and we end off with somebody who nobody even heard of. Some little girl, young girl from, a farm somewhere in the middle of nowhere of North Carolina, and we don't know where she's going to go, and we don't know what's going to be. She doesn't know. Maybe you'll hear of her in the Olympics, maybe you, and we don't know. And that is business. There's everything in between in business, everything in between, from those really, really successful to those who we don't know yet, and those who may or may not ever be successful. And the reason why we did that was very, very mindful and intentional, is that you, the audience members, you fall into one of, you fall anywhere in between of these categories. Maybe you are a very accomplished individual and the world knows you. Or maybe nobody knows of you and nobody has ever heard of you, and maybe you're just beginning now. It doesn't matter. Anywhere you are on the journey, the lesson still applies. Do your best is ultimately what everybody was saying. Show up and just be you. Be the best version of you. And what does that mean? That's the journey. It's the journey of discovery. It's this journey of self, going in front of that mirror and looking yourself and saying, who am I, and who do I want to be, and how do I want to be remembered by? This reminds me of a story of, the Nobel Prize, right? We heard of the Nobel Prize. Well, who was Alfred Nobel? Who was he? And what most people don't know is that he was the inventor of TNT, right? Dynamite. And one day, um, somebody dies from an explosion from TNT. Happens to be, shares the name Alfred Nobel, and all the newspapers and all the media thought it was that famous inventor, and they wrote a and they wrote a eulogy about him. And he sits down one day, or whatever the day was, and he's reading the newspaper, and lo and behold, there's a eulogy for Alfred Nobel, the inventor of TNT. And he's reading it, and he wonders to himself, is this how the world is going to remember me by? And that shook him to the core, and he decided to rewrite his eulogy. And that's how he came up with the prize. And he wanted to be remembered in a very, very different way. And that is the lesson that we have for ourselves here, is how do we want to be remembered? What's the life legacy that we're writing for ourselves? Whether it's a business sense, whether it's a personal sense, whatever that means. How are we leading our family? How are we leading our lives? How are we leading our businesses? And how are we leading our organizations? Is totally up to us. And if I could touch on somebody immediately close to me, then that in itself is an accomplishment. And if God forbid, I die or somebody dies, in the next little bit, who are the people who remember them and what are the stories they're going to share about them? And that's why it's very important from in the here and the now to really decide that. And when we live a life on this level and we're hearing it from, again, from somebody who's super successful, everything in between to somebody who's just starting off in their life, we hear that it's more fulfilling, it's enjoyable. And business is exactly that. Business can be enjoyable. Business does not have to be hard. Business does not have to be bad. Business does not have to be, a thing of sacrifice. There are a lot of people who really, really believe that it's a dog eat dog, and there's a lot of people who believe that, but what does that do for you? What does that do for you? And to always be somebody who's looking over their shoulder, and to always be somebody who's petrified of it isn't the way to live. It just isn't, at least not for me, and at least for not the people I like to hang out with. um, it doesn't have to be that way. And hey, if that's working for you and that's something you want to live by, you know it's totally up to you. But if you want to really believe that there's another way and that there's a better way, there is. And just go back on all these episodes and listen carefully to what each and every single person was saying. For the most part, most of these people love what they do, and they do it well. And some people are famous for that. And when we're hearing about these other legacy people like Michael Jackson, if you will, or Steve Jobs, or anybody who we really, really look back to and we say, wow, these guys were just so good at what they did. They loved what they did. It's showing up. It's hard. It's not easy. You have to practice, and you have to discipline yourself, and you have to really, really show up all the time, and not every day. It's fun, but they loved it. They loved what they did, and they found a purpose in what they did, and they saw a greater purpose, a greater future, a greater whatever it is that they saw, and that's what made them show up. And here's this young girl, CJ, for example, who she doesn't know what's going to be in the future for her, but at least she knows that today and right now, she wakes up self motivated, does the work when she has the time. Maybe, archery is not her end all be all. Maybe she has something else in her life that she wants to do. But she's at least disciplined, and at least she is where she's at, and she recognizes it. Is she going to land in the Olympics? We don't know. But she does know that if she does, she'll be prepared. And if she does, she's only going to do it when she finds that she really, really wants to do it, and it's something she absolutely loves. And if she's going to do it, she's going to do it right. She's going to do it to win it, and she's going to get at least one of the medals. She's going to get known for it. But if she does it, she does it right. And that, my friends, is the lesson. That we are meant to win. We are meant to make a lot of money. We are meant to be known for our industry, if we want that, obviously. But we are meant for that. But that's not the end goal. Remember that formula that I talk about, VIP, value plus impact equals profit. That means profits, or the accolades, or the rewards, whatever you want to see it as, comes afterwards. It comes as a natural result to all the hard work we put in, and all the effort we put in, and all the intention and the strategy and everything that goes into winning. It all begins with bringing the value, having the impact, doing what we need to do, showing up, being that best version of ourselves, and doing what we absolutely love to do. All this brings us to ultimate rewards. And that's how I want to conclude this year, this season. I want to conclude with a blessing for all of you that you should succeed in everything you do in a most beneficial, enjoyable, fun way. And you can do it if you only want to. And if you're willing to put in the discipline, if you're really, really willing to put in the work, it all starts from you. The buck starts and ends with you alone. And you get to write your eulogy. You get to write your way of how you want to be remembered by going back on these episodes and listening to the lessons that were shared and just showing up the way you want to show up and the way you want to be remembered by. If you want to be a gold medalist, well, you got it. And that's really ultimately what it's all about. So thank you all again for showing up and for enjoying this season. I'd love to hear back from you and looking forward to seeing you in season 3. Bye-bye. That's it for this week's episode of the Exceptionally Irresistible Show. What has inspired you to take action in your life? Take action now. Take the first step, share it with a friend, or write it in a journal. Subscribe and share this episode, and remember, you too are exceptionally irresistible.